welcome to Chromatic Roses, a podcast where two Midwestern women cultivate a community at the D&D table. I'm Soren.
And I'm Caitie. This week in the Rose Garden, we're doing something like, I don't know, a little fresh, a little funky, a little new, a little here and there, you know?
It's new.
It's new. So this is untitled right now. We've got a couple options. We'll get to that. But basically what we're going to do today is take a character that we all know. Some of us may love, some of us may not, and that's up to you. But we're going to take a character that exists already. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about what that character is like, things we like about them, why they're an interesting character, and then we're going to, like alchemy, transform those traits, not the character, those traits,
not the character,
into a D&D character, right? This isn't so much character creation station where we're going to like make a fully formed, fully thought out character, but we're going to talk more specifically about, you know, if you like, for instance, Batman's not the character we're using today. What do you like about Batman? And maybe it's that he's really good with like gadgets. And maybe we say, that sounds like an artificer to me. We're not going to make Batman the artificer, but we're going to make an artificer
who might be afraid of bats.
Who's like, kind of like Batman.
For an unreasonable or maybe a reasonable reason.
So the two titles right now that we have like floating around, one was provided by the only Michael Cornelius.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Dad. Lore, that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Lore Dump. Lore Dump. That's option number one. Another option, this was TJ's creation. Legend Lore.
Okay. Both are great and good, but there's something about those titles that feels not quite right for what we want this series to feel like. So, help. What do you guys think that we should call this series? Once you listen to the episode, maybe you'll get a couple ideas. Like, comment below, send us some thoughts. We will absolutely take a bunch of suggestions because we want to give it a cool name.
So the things that we've been talking about thus far is like, yes, we're taking pre-existing lore, but we're not just telling you what that lore is. We're then transforming it, alchemy-like, into a different, new, or an original character, right? So we were talking before this that like lore dump felt a little bit too like, here's the stuff you already know about this character.
Yeah, or like here's the skinny on this character. And it's like, sure, but we're gonna take and then make.
Right. Take and make. That's not the title.
Anyway. Not the title.
So that's what we're doing today. And today I'm gonna tell you what it is, but then Soren's gonna talk about it because Soren just knows so much more about it. That's not entirely true, but I know a lot about it. But you, I think, are more eloquent in being able to like describe it.
Sure, yeah. I should have brought all my volumes out.
Oh, sure.
But
it's okay.
We can show those some other time.
We're talking today about Lore Olympus.
Specifically, we're going to talk about someone in Lore Olympus.
A character from Lore Olympus. Now, what is Lore Olympus, you might ask? It's a webcomic. About Greek gods and goddesses.
I think the tagline is what it's been since Rachel Smythe released this comic, and it was, "Come find out what the gods do after dark," something like that.
Sure.
But it's essentially retelling a bunch of different like Greek mythology stories through a more modern lens and through a comic, like a webcomic format.
Right.
So it is not.
The gods and goddesses have cell phones.
Yeah.
You know what
It's
I mean?
in a modern setting.
Right.
The art is stunning, but I could talk about that for days, so I'll try to cut myself off there for a sec. But it's so cool. And the way Rachel Smythe, and I'm sure the team that she works with now, because it's gotten so big, they do a really good job of like interweaving like the myths and stories, and she takes like her own plot and kind of like puts it in the midst of what already kind of exists and what we already really know about Greek mythology and those monsters.
It's okay if you don't, but do you know when it started?
I think I started reading it I literally reached for my phone and I don't have it. I think, what is it? It's 2023.
Do you want me to look on Webtoon? Is that
maybe check like when it released, because so Lore Olympus released and went on for, I want to say like 20 something chapters, and then the author, main artist, re-released it. So like started re-releasing the story because she was like, I didn't quite like tell the story the way I wanted to. So she like, so there might be 2 release dates. What does it say?
It says episode 1, March 3rd, 2018.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And right now we're on episode 258. And that got released on December 30th.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I would have started reading it around that time. That would have been like after I had really first moved here and was like getting settled. Like I'm thinking about the things that were happening around the time. I think that year was the year I actually started getting into webtoons and like webcomics. But yeah, I've been reading it ever since. And then anyone who like fits the vibe of that comic, I like share it with them. And I'm like, please and join me.
And what's cool is that like she's been able to release like these comics in physical form in like, we're on volume 5.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think I have 3 or 4 of them. I think I only have the first 3 volumes.
Yeah.
The physical ones.
Like, so that the first volume is not just like episode 1, it's episodes 1 through whatever.
Yeah.
So, and yes, the artwork's great. And
it's so different to experience it in a book format.
But and I also was going to say, the web comic, sometimes she has like music attached.
Yeah, and
to
so
certain
you don't
episodes.
have that. Yeah.
And I also enjoy the webcomic version for the aspect of she scrolls and orients the panels in such a way that as you like you're scrolling through it, and that in and of itself is telling a part of the story as well.
Yeah, because of the way all of like the images connect. So you get like a very unique story experience. So I'm sure like I could talk about this but I'm sure formatting that into a bound book is probably a struggle, like in a different way.
I bet so.
But there's a character specifically that we love.
Some might say she's kind of a main character, right?
I don't know. She is this color. She's pink. And the character we're talking about is the goddess of spring, the bringer of death, Persephone. She is so cool. And we thought she would be a great character to introduce this kind of series that we want to work on, because we both read the webcomic. We know a good chunk about her, both in and out of the comic, and we have lots of different outlets for enjoying Persephone.
Yeah.
So,
and I think this one we're gonna kind of talk about her in like specific the lens of Lore Olympus, because there are some details that webcomic gives to her that I'm sure are still kind of present within the original. Yeah, but are like a little bit of creative liberty. But there's like a little bit of creative liberty there, yeah. So we're going to start by talking about what it is that we think makes Persephone an interesting character. Yeah. We'll take a little roll with it break, and then we'll take those traits and find their like D&D counterpart.
How to like tune it into a character that's not Persephone,
right?
But pull some of her traits that we really enjoy.
Right, exactly. Well, what do you like about Persephone?
My first note that I wrote was literal plants.
I also wrote nature being, so that tracks.
Yeah, I am always down for, I mean, it's very like druid-esque in my mind.
Yeah.
But also the, like, on another level, like, Persephone is not just a druid, like, she, like, is spring.
Sure.
So, like, she is more than, I make these things.
So, if you were to take is spring and put it into, like, not goddess terms. If you were to describe a person on the street as the embodiment of spring, what would that mean to you?
Yeah. Are we talking like with a D&D lens or just like human?
Human.
If I had to like describe someone like you're spring, I would say I immediately think of visuals. So I'm thinking of someone who could be very, I think could be very pale, but has like very flushed, rosy, like a lively appearance, if that makes sense. Like life is wrought within them, and flowing.
What about their personality? Do you think it would affect their personality?
Yes, and I think to that I would add like there's a jovialness and like a liveliness that I feel like comes with spring and comes with the bringing of life.
Sure.
But this is something that like that you can't really know about a person till you get to know them, but something that I know intrinsically like about Persephone is there's such a duality in this character. So for anybody who's not familiar with the character Persephone, there, especially in lore Olympus terms, there is a very strong duality where she experiences bouts of rage and like enacts wrath like on others, and like goes full like badass, not quite villain, but like
destructive
destruction. Just destruction. That's kind of where I'm headed.
Yeah.
Like there's a purpose. It is not for the sake of chaos. Yeah. Like something sets her off and she's like, So maybe there could be a little bit of mystery then, behind that person and their personality.
Sure.
There's more than meets the eye, but again, that's not something I could know just looking at somebody.
Sure.
But yeah, so those are the first, like when I'm thinking literal plants, I'm thinking life, I'm thinking very joyful, very sweet and good-natured, LOL nature. But yeah, your turn.
Also in lore Olympus, at least at the start, so I'm like talking full Persephone arc, not necessarily mid Persephone arc. She comes to Olympus from the mortal realm and is like new to the city, right? She's like, not used to all of the busyness and the technology. And
I mean this with all the love in my heart because this is in part TJ, but she is the epitome of like homeschool kid whose mom like didn't let her do fun things because overprotective,
and she's like excited to be there and also scared out of her mind.
Yes, 100%. So like lots of, I wouldn't say like naivety, you could absolutely use that word for her, but I would say there's lots of like hopeful optimism. Like probably knows that there are bad things because her mom scared her enough, like as a kid, to be like, no, Olympus is bad. But not enough that she's not interested to go there. So she goes there for school. And it is like her first time out on her own. There's lots of new experiences happening. She's kind of being watched over by Artemis. Thank you. Artemis has kind of become her caretaker, and which is very fitting because if anyone is familiar, like with Artemis, the Greek goddess as well, she is the protector of young women and like protector of their virtue in a way. So it was very fitting that Rachel Smythe made her like friend and protector.
She is a part of a like scholarship thing, right?
Yes. Which Persephone's part of a scholarship thing, which is, I think it's dominantly based on her grades and it's like what she got in school.
I thought it had to do with like Hestia.
it was the Oh, I'm forgetting the word.
Yeah, me too.
But it is with the holy.
Let's see if I can find it.
The what's the word? Not celibate. Holy
But,
maidens.
like,
It's the something maidens.
Kind of celibate.
Forever.
It would have been in one of those first
say, like,
episodes.
Forever maidenhood.
I think that might be it. Eternal maidenhood. Or something like that.
There it is. Something like that. But yeah, she has a scholarship with the goddesses Athena and Hestia. And they are part of a larger, like, goddesses of eternal maidenhood. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
And so she got a scholarship through them to go to school in Olympus. Yeah.
There are a group of goddesses in Greek mythology that choose to never have like a mate of any kind and are very protective of their celibacy. Mm-hmm. And the start of this arc for Persephone is very much like protecting her celibacy. And is Demeter? No, she's not, because she had Persephone, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
But
like Demeter, like kind of encouraged her to be in it.
Also, I just have to know. I've heard it more than once said Demeter. Is it Demeter?
I've heard it both.
Okay.
So I think honestly, you know how sometimes when you're reading something, you like read it different in your head, and then you hear it out loud, and you're like, oh. Yeah. People say it that way too.
I've been reading Stephen Fry's Mythos.
Yeah.
And like it's obviously wrought with Greek names and stuff, and I'm like, man, I don't know how to say that. And so I've been trying to like look stuff up as I'm reading it, but there are not a lot of like places to find like ancient pronunciations of
that's fair.
myth. That's fair. So I think when I figured out, or when I was like, oh shit, is it Demeter? As playing Hades.
Sure.
They call her Demeter. Yeah. And she's like introduced, like she's not introduced right away. She comes in later. And so I like got past a certain threshold, and it like Demeter shows up, and I'm like, oh shit, is it Demeter? I've been saying
honestly,
Demeter.
I think in my head it is always Demeter, and that's just how I pronounce it. We're really starting to split hairs here, folks. But yeah, in my head I think I say Demeter. I'm not kidding. I think I either heard you or our friend Laura Lynn when I was talking with one of you about it. I heard one of you say Demeter, and I was like, oh my God, I've been saying it wrong the whole time.
No, I think you were probably right. Anyway, so cool. Do you
TJ might be cutting that tangent.
Leave it in, it's fine. Do you have another one?
Oh, yeah, I do. So we were talking about plants, but then I put literally in quotations because it's part of her title is she is also known as the bringer of death. So in order for spring and rebirth, like what has to come before that, but like death and like finality. So she's also known as like the bringer of winter because it's like prepping the world for rebirth. And I don't think they don't really talk about that in the comic necessarily. Lore Olympus is very much like a coming of age, figuring out what Persephone is capable of, and not really fully understanding herself because she was like homeschooled and kept in the dark about her own abilities for so long. So there's this, like how I was talking about earlier, there's this duality to her.
And she's like punished for that duality, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But there's this quote unquote, what would be considered like dark side of her that she doesn't fully understand. So when it comes out, there's like a ton of shame that's like associated with that, which I think is very relatable for lots and lots of people. So I think it makes her all the more like, endearing. Or like I'm so much more drawn to her because there's this interesting duality that's kind of like shameful.
Yeah.
But yeah, she gets severely punished for it.
Because like in the comic, something happened in the mortal realm where she like raged.
Yeah, so
and killed a bunch of people.
Like spoiler alert. So if anyone like hasn't read it or like doesn't want to know,
sorry,
maybe go listen to episode 1 again, or listen to something.
Go find something else.
But there's some massive spoilers.
Which, like, naturally, because we're having to dissect the character. So, like, what did you expect?
We'll be sure to put a spoiler alert. Maybe we'll talk to TJ about putting, like, chapters up so that you could jump to the next part or something. Sure. But, yes, there is a huge instance of her wrath coming out. So, like, she lived in the Myrtle Realm, was around, like, I think nymphs? Flower nymphs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, like, just, like, spring nymphs in general.
Tree nymphs.
Grew up around the nymphs and like they were her family.
Right.
And there were some like just mortals, like field workers that were like reaping a harvest and like clearing trees, cutting down plants or whatever. And it killed one of like Persephone's friends.
Right.
And then you like the next I'm like getting like like jazzed about it. You see like Persephone transform from like having a good time like with her family and friends to seeing like one of her family members like deteriorating in front of her. And so then she like goes to where those mortals are, and she's kind of like already like flying off the handle, and she just grows to like 10 times her normal size and like sprouts these giant like lush like green wings, and her eyes like go red, which is a super cool like color composition to see this like pink bubbly character like get red eyes and like sprout these like amazing wings, and then she just like murders a town of people.
And Demeter like tries to cover it up
100% because she's trying to like protect her daughter, keep her from getting in trouble like with the Olympians. And I think Demeter like knows that she has this like wrath as a part of her and partially doesn't want it to exist, doesn't want people to find out. I think it also has to do with her like being a fertility goddess. Like Demeter doesn't want any of like the upper echelon of Olympians to find out, because then they can take advantage of her, which unfortunately like happens in some instances throughout the comic, which is really tough. But yeah, Demeter tries to cover everything up, try to make Persephone as like hidden as possible.
Right.
And so like technically in a way like she almost gets away with it, but the way Persephone like recounts the experience is very much like I couldn't control myself and he killed my family member and I don't know what happened to me and I'm so ashamed of myself for going through this. It very much reminds me of like not exactly the same, but it gives me echoes of like No Mercy Percy.
Oh, sure.
Of like just like going for it. However, that's more of like a curse and more of like an affliction.
Right.
And hers is like a part of her.
Right. It is. Yeah. Still, it's like a justice thing. Like you wronged me, now I'm wronging you.
Yes.
And
yeah. Like to an extreme. Yeah. It's nuts.
That was kind of my last thing also, was like the duality, and I also labeled it like bravery, like towards the middle, toward like obviously not the end because it's still ongoing, but more in the middle of the comic, she has to do a lot of like face-to-face confrontations with like Zeus and Apollo and all of those kinds of things, and so she is this like ingenue, like, I just don't know what I'm doing here, like that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But then towards the middle, even like not from a perspective of her accepting that duality necessarily, but just like understanding that like I don't have to put up with you. Like you don't get to talk to me like that.
Yeah.
I'm and also to Demeter as well.
Yeah.
Like to her own mother being able to say like, nope, this is not how you're going to treat me. Goodbye.
Yeah. If you need a good piece of media to teach you some, or to give you some good examples of people coming into their own and like people growing through trauma and like learning how to take their own power back when it comes to like self-agency and stuff. Lore Olympus is a great comic for you.
This is neither here nor there, but I am interested, and maybe I'm not caught up.
Oh, me neither.
Whatsoever.
I've actually been like waiting so I can have a few to go through.
I am curious how, or if it even will, handle the like later like portion of Hades and Persephone's relationship. Because within the myth, like, they very much grow apart, and like it becomes like well, and I guess in the actual myth she's like fucking kidnapped. So
correct.
Like in this particular version she goes willingly. It's like more of a healthy relationship that like Hades is very supportive.
So very much like taking the creative liberty to make these characters a little more like not so Greek myth and much more like relatable story that is based on myth.
Right. So like Zeus is still very much a womanizer. Like there are plenty of like that Greek god womanizing trait. Yeah. Hades does not have that trait.
Hades does not. No, Hades is like I got stuck with the underworld and I'm just here now. Also, I really just want someone to complete me.
And like Cerberus is like the sweetest
pet boy dog. He's his little pet.
So there are some differences there, but I am interested to see if that comic ends up going in the direction of showing the deterioration of that. If she's
like, no, like I want to stay true to that, or if she like continues, because I like the idea of it going in her own direction. And like being like, here's what we would hope for this kind of story, or here's what we could hope for this kind of myth.
Right.
But I also see it going the other way too.
I'm getting super off track. But like, do you think eventually it'll get into the like Eurydice and Orpheus like thing and like all of that?
I think it'd be. We are getting off track.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. This is our podcast. It doesn't matter.
This is true. I am super. I love that idea.
I really love Hades.
I was gonna say we're starting to lean into like the theater Broadway side.
I was like a top 0.01 fan of Hades.
Of course you were. No, I love that so much. It's got great music. It's a great show. But I want to see how Lore Olympus would structure that.
Sure.
Like how they would make that come to fruition.
Well, and what I think translates in an interesting way is in Lore Olympus, the underworld is like corporate America, like very like...
It's very systematic.
There's lots of red tape. There's lots of paperwork. Yeah. So whereas in Hades Town, it's like more of that like industrial... mining, like that sort of a thing. So but I think there's still like a commonality there of just like, you know, what Persephone has in Hades Town a line that's like I can't remember it now, but it's something about like when the foreman turns his back, like that sort of a thing.
Yeah, what the boss don't know, the boss won't mind.
Yeah, and I think the Fates also say a thing about like the foreman or something. Anyway, 100%. So there's like there's a sense of Hades being the boss of this like systematic thing, and he was building the systematic thing while Persephone was away because he felt like she didn't want to be with him anymore, so he was trying to make something she'd want to be a part of. And so like I think there are some interesting parallels in the way that Lore Olympus has made it.
I think there could be this really interesting presentation of that idea, in that the impression that we get of Hades when we're like first reading Lore Olympus is that he's actually really a sweet god.
Sweetest man.
He's the sweetest man. He is very, very hurt. Very, very like traumatized. And has lots to work on. But his reputation in the underworld precedes him, and like he is terrifying, and like he also has that duality, but he's like that moniker of like terrifying like follows him always. Like, there is no duality. The duality we see is actually the reverse for what we see for Persephone, and I've never made that connection before in my life, is that we always see Hades as, like, wrathful.
Sure.
But then when with Persephone, we see this, like, shift.
Very sigh, yeah.
Yep. And then with her, we see the other. So I would love to see how that would, like, mix in with that corporate America kind of platform.
Anywho, is there anything we didn't talk about as far as, like, traits we like about Persephone that you want to get in there?
I'm trying to think of other things.
In thinking about her as we've been talking about her, she's like very loyal and thoughtful towards the people who have, like, shown her the same. Like, she's very, like, it's not transactional, but it's like she would do anything for Artemis, you know, like someone. Hecate, she would do, you know, she likes Hecate. She's willing to try, like, anything to like better the world around her.
Yes.
I'm thinking of the, like, dream thing.
The dream diving.
Yeah,
100%. Like, I think also, like, Hades and Persephone are a great example of, like, I can't fix you. You have to want to fix you, but I will absolutely be, like, right here next to you, like, while it's happening, so you can have a buddy.
Right.
So I think that is a very endearing quality about Persephone. Yeah. I also love seeing her just as a platonic friend, like with Eros and with Hermes. I love I love the way she interacts with her friends.
Would you consider Persephone to be charismatic? I was struggling with this earlier. She's not, when I think of charismatic, I think of Zeus. Zeus is charismatic.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily, she is, like, a different brand of Riz, as the kids call it.
She Riz different.
Can you, I think about is the little Muppet rat when I hear Riz. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
That's all I can think of.
You see his little snoot, and he's just like, "What's up?"
Sorry.
No, it's totally okay. I think. Sorry, I just heard Granger like big stretch. I think the thing about Persephone that's alluring, I think I've said it a couple times, she's endearing. Like,
sure, yeah.
She is, it's not quite like, oh, you're charismatic, like, you've got the woo factor. She doesn't, like, try to...
She's warm.
Yeah.
Warm and nurturing.
Yeah.
She is that. She emits that energy.
Without being, like, a full-on maternal force, like, right this second in the story. I think she is a very inviting presence.
Right.
Yeah.
Inclusive. She's a very inclusive individual.
She's very much if I had to, like, sum it up, like, she makes you feel warm, and I feel like she would say the phrase, y'all means all.
Sure. Okay. True.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a good way to put that.
Anything else?
No, I think we've tangented in and around how much we like her and what specifically we like about her. So I think
if you're not into Greek myths, this one just isn't.
This one just ain't gonna hit for you. Do we want to use a physical die since I put one on the set today?
Do it. We're about to roll with it in case you didn't know. We're gonna do a current. So this has something that has to do with something we're into lately.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What are you gonna roll on?
My notebook. Okay. Actually, on the player's handbook. Let's see if I can do it. All right. Ready?
Ready.
12.
We've done that one already. Do it again.
14.
You've just scored a day off. And you're only allowed to do leisurely activities all day.
Wow.
What sounds real good right now?
Leisurely activities.
You just scored a day off.
Yeah.
And you're only allowed, somebody's monitoring you, and you're only allowed to do leisurely activities all day, what sounds real good to you
Leisure
right now?
only.
Yeah. No productivity whatsoever.
Okay, actually, I will try to go first.
Okay.
But I am so interested to hear what you say.
What do you mean?
Because she knows exactly what I mean.
What do you mean?
Because you have told me on multiple occasions that you struggle with idle time and feeling like you need to be productive consistently.
I just don't like... Listen. Okay. I don't have to be productive 24/7. However, I don't... If I am rotting on... There's a difference between...
Rotting.
Leisure and rot.
Sure.
And
sloth.
There becomes a time where if the leisure activity is watching TV, eventually I'm like, this feels bad.
Sure.
I have been sitting here for far too long.
I can feel it.
And usually the way to like get out of that for me, unless I'm really in a place where like I'm burnt out, I've done too much. I want, like, the way to get out of that for me is like, let's like do a quick tidy.
Sure.
To like bring the brain out of rot. So it's not that I can't fucking relax. It's just that I don't like rotting for too long.
Okay.
Rotting feels bad.
That is fair. That's fair.
Go.
Wait. Okay. I guess I am answering first.
That's what you said.
Yeah, you're right. Day off.
Yeah.
Leisure activities only.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make that exclude most video games for me because there is a productivity function to a lot of video games. Like, unless it's caveat. Shush.
Yeah, bring it around.
I think a leisure day could absolutely be me playing Genshin Impact purely to explore and like purely to just like run around the map and like do whatever. But the minute it's like, oh, I need to go grind to get this material to blah blah blah, like there's a productivity like side to that. And if I'm only allowed to do leisure stuff, I'm not allowed to do any of like the productive stuff in Genshin. So that's just a little handicap for myself. But it makes sense to me.
Sure.
Okay, so I would probably do like exploration focused video game stuff. I'd maybe, oh my gosh, I love wandering around malls and I love wandering around like bookstores. Sure. And not necessarily, I like window shopping a lot. So I might do something like that. I might get myself a nice little drinkity and like wander around a Barnes and Noble and maybe like pick out some new manga. Yeah, I would probably end up doing that. What would you do?
The other thing that I don't do well with is unstructured time.
Yeah, I was waiting for this.
So I would make, in order for this day to be restful, like actually leisure, I would need a plan. And I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound like leisure. It is for me.
Yeah, but it gives you like a framework,
right? If I have a full unstructured day, rot occurs.
Katie's gonna be like,
and I get restless, and I like my brain gets busy, and I don't end up being restful. I would, if this were actually something I got, the first thing I would do is like list out all the things I'd like to be able to do, and then try to like put them in some sort of priority order so that I like did the things I definitely wanted to do for sure. For instance, you can't see this from here, but that's okay. One day I was really struggling, and so I made myself a structured self-care Friday night. And I'm going to follow a similar structure
so very
for
much.
this. So I would probably start off with like pancakes for breakfast. You know what I mean? Like something like bougie that I don't get to do very often. But like pancakes are my favorite breakfast. So I'd probably make myself pancakes. And then I'd probably go do a Target run. I love
I was going to say, you like wandering in Target.
I will, like there's a super Target in Lincoln, and I will just do a lap. Like, not even looking for anything in particular, but it's in a circle. Like, you can do a lap around the entire thing, and I will do a lap. While I'm there, I'll probably pick up some, like, self-care items, like face masks or, like, a bath bomb, things like that. Nighttime teas, maybe some fruits, you know, things like that. And then I'm going to guess that would take me, if I woke up late, had pancakes, then went to Target, it's probably about lunchtime now. So I would probably make myself tomato soup with 2 grilled cheeses.
That makes total sense.
And then after that, I would probably dedicate my afternoon to, like, fun times. So I play video games. Unlike Soren, I don't play a lot of video games that require work. In that
she
sense. Exclusively
is, like, not a fan of any simulator that makes it feel like another job.
I don't want to do life to play the game.
Which, I get it.
The only one that I found to be an exception is Disney Dreamlight Valley.
Yes, you've mentioned that.
And it's because you don't have to, like, you don't have to sleep. You don't have to, any grinding you have to do is, like, mining topaz. You know, like, it's not a life-esque task. I don't have to make food if I don't want to. I could just eat bananas all day and replenish my energy that way.
Yep.
So, like, no part of it is absolutely required.
Well, there's no survival function.
Right. So I would probably play that. I was realizing the other night that I have started to play that when I don't want to think.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my like non-thinking game. So I probably play a little of that, but I might, if I'm feeling spicy, might play like some Hades or like Skyrim, something like that. A game that requires a little bit more mental activity.
Sure, yeah. Just something to like stimulate.
Right. My dinner would be a girl dinner. It would be like a snack tray.
Oh, it would be like a straight up, yeah. Actually, I feel like if it was a leisure day for me, I would forget about several meals.
Sure.
By several, I mean probably breakfast and probably lunch.
Sure.
So my first meal, this is like if I had the day off and like did not make a structured day, then my ADHD would take over.
Sure.
Meals don't exist because I'm focusing on wandering around Barnes and Noble.
Sure.
Or like casually gaming.
Right.
So yes, first meal would be a girl dinner, and it would be like a charcuterie board, like a grown-up Lunchable.
I would definitely do that, and then I would probably like maybe bake a little treat or watch some YouTube. Lately, my Dropout has been the place that I spend all of my time. I'm just binging all of Dropout's content.
Amazing.
So maybe a little that, maybe a little GMM, you know. And then I would light all of the candles in my house, which is a few, and put them all in the bathroom. And I know what you're thinking, fire hazard, I don't care. I would put them all in my bathroom so that I wouldn't have to turn the big lights on. I could just be in there with candlelight. Yeah. And then I would draw a bath. And I would probably like watch more Dropout in the bath or read a book or something. And then I would go to bed. And that would be my day.
It's an extensively structured leisure day.
It's my favorite kind.
But it hits all the points that it totally makes sense.
I don't get trapped in any one activity because I know what's coming next. And I sometimes when I have like unstructured leisure days, I also get to the like, this could be a time I could hang out with a friend. And then I sit there looking at all of the friends I could possibly hang out with. And then I'm like, oh gosh, Soren's probably busy today, so I'm not going to text her. And then I'll be like, well, I could text Emily, but oh man, she said she was really stressed lately. I should leave her alone.
So then she ends up on Discord with TJ.
So then, yeah, probably. But there was a point in time where I would do that, convince myself that I would do that for so long that by the time I would convince myself to just go ahead and reach out to someone, it was too late to really do anything. And then I would feel sad about the fact that I was alone for a long time. So structure serves me in more ways than one. Anyway, if that's just me, feel free to just move along. But if it's not, holler at me in the comments.
Please, yes, please do. And I will say, like, my leisure day that I gave as my answer was literally just me trying to put the least amount of effort. I know that if I don't want to feel like exasperated by the end of the day, I would probably also add some structure.
Sure.
Like to a leisure day. But
I love structure and planning.
Yes, it's absolutely necessary. Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, now we're back in it. So now we're going to take those cool traits, and I've been writing them down, so don't you even worry your pretty little head. And we're going to talk through them in the sense of D&D mechanics. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like it's so important to remind you, we're not making Persephone. We're not even going to fully flesh out an entire character. Yeah. We're just going to talk about these traits and how we think they make sense in D&D mechanics and how we might use those if we were to make a character. If you're somebody who thinks, hey, honestly, I would like to see you make a full-fledged character out of these traits, holler at your girl in your comments. And we'll take that into consideration the next time we do it.
Yep.
But here we go.
We might even save this Persephone-inspired character and, like, put them on character creation station someday.
All right.
Putting the dice down.
Nice.
It was on a 9.
Okay, so some of the things that I wrote down. Mm-hmm. I wrote down that, well, first of all, I wrote down pale and then rosy, because that's what you said first. Lively, interesting, okay. Mm-hmm. Jovial, mysterious, also interesting. Mm-hmm. Let me just put this out there. I think Persephone's a barbarian.
Oh, I've heard you explain or describe this to me before, and I love that idea very, very much.
I think she's a wild magic barbarian specifically.
Because of the lack of control?
The lack of control and, like, the magical element.
Yeah.
And
so we're talking, like, a little bit of, like, pre-honing that wrath.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
I'm just gonna really
like, room for character arc.
Sure.
Pre-wrath.
If I'm not mistaken, there is one in the Path of the Wild Magic Barbarian. Mm-hmm. If you were to play this and you rolled, so you roll on the Wild Magic table every time you rage, I believe.
Yes.
So you roll a D8. If you roll a 7, flowers and vines temporarily go around you until your rage ends.
So, more spoilers, like, there is an instance of that, like, where her powers, like, overcome her, essentially, and, like, put her in, like, a little plant cocoon.
This says, the ground within 15 feet of you is difficult terrain for your enemies. So it's not so much, in D&D terms, it's not so much a deterrent for you, it's a deterrent for your enemies. But I couldn't...
Wouldn't that be neat, though?
If, I don't remember where I heard. I think it was Ether Sea, the Adventure Zone Ether Sea, mm-hmm. where I thought Griffin was playing a wild magic barbarian. Somebody can correct me. But I'm pretty sure he rolled on the wild magic table and turned into a potted plant. Which, LOL.
That's so funny. Sorry, Menth.
So I thought that was part of it, but maybe he was rolling on a different table. You could also
potentially homebrew a little bit if you wanted to.
There's like a big wild magic table, I think, for wild. Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe he was a wild magic sorcerer, not a barbarian.
Sure.
So that has a different, I think, wild magic table. Sure. Anyway, but I think that's her class.
I really like that, and I think. What I was originally thinking was like, oh, like, it'd be so easy for us to just lean into, like, a druid.
Yeah.
But I don't think that would really cover that, like, someone that has that duality of, like, rage.
Right.
Like, quite literally just rage.
I also, in looking at these notes, I mean, I've got hopeful, unsure, I've got warm, nurturing, inclusive, I've got discovering, having this rage and being shameful about it. I think that could be an interesting RP. Like, it's a barbarian who, like, when they, like, lose control when they rage, and that is, like, something they don't like about themselves.
Yeah, so maybe there's, like, a, like, post-rage, they, like disconnect from the group and like go off by themselves.
This also sounds to me like a character who is lawful good or lawful chaotic or something. Chaotic lawful, that's not chaotic. Lawful neutral maybe. When I wrote lawful, when you said it's just rage, it's rage that she feels like she's enacting for a reason.
There is the rage gets triggered by injustice.
Right, exactly.
So whatever that justice looks like, I think that would be the thing we need to figure out is like, what is this code of justice for this character? And like, if you were to make someone like this down the line, I think that is a variable that could change a lot, but whatever that code of justice is for them, figuring out what that is and then letting it rage accordingly.
I was going to look up while we're here. And I don't know ability scores. We're going to the internet, folks. Intelligence.
Ooh, I just like, okay, so this is quite literally wording from the player's handbook about barbarians, but it's that talking about the like primal instinct. There's just one sentence that I think really could align with a character like this is like, to a barbarian, civilization is no virtue, but a sign of weakness. And not to say that like Persephone's, like the actual Persephone's character feels that way. But if we're leaning into barbarian, like maybe there is this like nature is what's like best for people, or like this kind of like just about like destroying that because like corporateness and like destruction like ruins that which is good for people or that which is good for others.
I was putting I put some thought behind the fact that she was like naive and kind of sheltered. And was trying to think about that in mechanical terms as far as like wisdom versus intelligence. Intelligence more represents your ability to like analyze information, whereas wisdom is like being in tune with
street smarts,
people's surroundings, and street smarts.
Isn't it literally book smarts versus street smarts?
That's kind of how I framed it. So I'm like wondering if she's intelligent but not wise. Maybe she's got a lower modifier for wisdom. I was also gonna look at just on one of my own character sheets.
Like I think I'm defaulting to a she because we've just been talking about Persephone, but truly this is like blanket statementing. You could put this on a he, she, they, anybody. Because
like intelligence falls with the arcana skill, history, investigation, nature, religion, and wisdom is like animal handling, insight, medicine, perception, survival.
So maybe she's wise but not smart. Which one's street smart?
Is she book smart or street smart?
I think she's street smart.
I disagree.
Okay, why?
Well, like, because she, like, Artemis was having to teach her how to socialize.
Right, but that's part of book smart. No. Oh, no, I see what you're saying.
She's got a little bit of both, this particular character, but if we're going to boil her down to just, like, traits and we're not recreating Persephone specifically, I think this character could be book smart, not street smart.
Then, I think that's fair.
They're like, a little socially unaware. She has
learned the ways and, like, learned everything there is to know about, let's say, because we're using, like, plant and, like, life in that way, like spring. She's learned everything there is to learn about that.
Yeah, she's a little naive. She probably, I think you could...
She's a specialist in that information.
Twist this into her being like, she trusts people.
little too quickly.
You know what I mean? Like she does not have worldly knowledge to know that like some people don't have altruistic intent. You know, like that sort of a thing. Yeah. And maybe that's why the rage trigger exists, because when somebody does that, it's like
whoa, I wasn't, people don't do that.
Right.
You don't do that to somebody. And then.
Yeah. Because I also think, I mean, she's like going to school and like was very studious and all of that sort of thing. So like, I feel like that's why intelligence being higher can make sense. Whereas she was like easily manipulated and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So maybe this character, wherever she hails from or wherever she like trained, I suppose, maybe it's a very like enclosed, secluded like school or institution or organization that she was a part of, so that in itself will cause a little bit of sheltering. Right.
Technically, for a quick build for barbarians, strength is your top score, with constitution following, and I still think that can be true. I mean, Persephone in and of herself, if you're building a character specifically like her, she's not built necessarily.
No, but there are plenty of instances where her powers like do something very impressive and she's like, oh shit.
Right. She's like unaware of her own strength. Yeah.
Yes. So I can see her accidentally like busting a table.
Right.
Or like accidentally like
it also recommends
making shit grow.
Right. It also recommends the Outlander background for barbarians. I'm just gonna look that up really quick.
Where is, or would that even be in here? Or is it in whatever you're looking at?
What's your question?
Oh, I was just asking if that's like in the book that I could like.
Oh, probably.
You said Outlander.
I honestly am not sure. It's a background. Okay. So like in each class, it gives you like, hey, if you want to make this really fast, here's where you do that. And it recommends the Outlander background as that part of it, which Outlander background, you grew up in the wilds, far from the comforts of town and technology, which kind of fits. You witnessed migration of herds larger than forests, blah, blah, blah. You get proficiencies in athletics and survival. You get a type of musical instrument. And then you can like pick an origin from like forester, trapper, homesteader, guide.
Ooh, I feel like, I don't know, I kind of feel like homesteader or forester would like make sense, because there's like a utility to like homesteading of like, yes, I can create all of this stuff, but then I can put it to good use. And forester feels very like protective. Right. So I think either of those could be good choices. I don't know which one you might lean to.
I mean, I think whatever makes the most sense for your particular character is probably fine. The backgrounds don't serve a ton of mechanical purpose.
Yeah, it just gives you some like
some backstory. Well, and I guess a little structure. That's also where you get like the bonds, flaws, ideals, all of that comes from your background. So I think Outlander still very much so fits, but I was going to look through some other ones and see if there was one that made maybe even more sense for a Persephone, a Persephone-esque character. There's like a million though, so this is probably kind of a not so important piece of it. But yeah, I think we've built so far, to recap, we've got a wild magic barbarian who is low wisdom, high intelligence, played more from the naive, easily trusting perspective rather than the like is unaware of social cues. And does,
but is very like kind and like good natured and like sweet.
Right.
So there's like a duality in that already.
Right. Yeah, I think at its core, if you choose to play a character like this, it is a character who is kind and warm and inclusive and bubbly, jovial, happy, whatever, until they're not.
Yeah.
And then that
there's like a
switch is kind of jarring. And I think if I were playing this kind of character, it would be kind of jarring to my party. Like, I think I would not let them know maybe that this is my class, or I might not, I might make something in my role playing become very different when I rage. So if I'm in combat and I, you know, indicate that I'm gonna rage, maybe I narrate that my eyes turn red and and I am no longer
almost
interacting.
Create an alter ego,
right,
in a way, so that you can like drop into that. And
Right.
I agree with I think something that like I get kind of lost in the sauce with is like wanting to give my group all of like the super cool details, like right up front, when it's like, I think this character is a show don't tell kind of character. Tell what is absolutely necessary, and then show the rest.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's a lot else that needs to be said mechanically. I think you can then, if you're looking at Persephone as your inspiration, I think you look at her from her like bonds and ideals, like things she would care about, and kind of factor that into your character a little bit. The thing that I think is important when you're taking a character from media, unless you're legit just trying to make
copy paste
Persephone as a D&D character, I think the thing that you want to be careful about is like maybe your backstory for this character doesn't involve the god of the underworld kidnapping you from your mom. You know, like you gotta like separate her story from your story and find kind of like what we did today of like finding those, ooh, I like this character because they've got this duality. I like this character because they're kind of an ingenue, but they're coming into their own. I like the coming into your own arc.
I think there's lots of room for that coming of age and finding yourself kind of experience, but there are lots of different ways that a character like Persephone could have happened, period.
Right.
So like you could totally pull pieces from Persephone's own story, but I think that you might have a lot more fun if you try to figure out how to input differently to get a similar result.
Right.
Like come up with, I would say give her a different foundation, but it still produced a similar answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Persephone.
Kind of.
That's Persephone traits. That's what we like about Persephone and how we would translate that into a character of ours.
Trait alchemy.
Oh boy.
Please give us ideas for what we should call this.
Tralchemy.
I do like the word alchemy. Saying tralchemy sounds awful.
Tracheotomy. What do you like about Persephone? Do you like Persephone? Do you think she would be an interesting character? Do you think we missed a core piece of her character that you want to put into a character or wish we would have talked about? And we've asked you so many questions today, but here's another one. What characters in media do you want us to do this to?
Yes, what other characters do you find interesting that would be super cool to morph into a D&D character? I'm very excited to continue this series. I'm excited to it's fun. It's really fun to discuss. So please give us ideas.
Yeah.
That's all she has for you.
That's it for us this week. Thanks for spending time with us today. Thanks to Noah Trumble for the use of our theme song. His link to his Instagram is in our descriptions, in the doobly-doos, as one says. So be sure to give him a follow and stay up to all date on all the stuff he does. They've released like an album on Spotify and the like. So
the band he's in, Pearl Parade.
Yeah.
Go check him out.
Go get in on that. Parade. Anyway, here you go.
My turn.
It's pink. Don't forget.
Oh, it's pink. If you're enjoying the show, it's pink. I'm just kidding. I was trying to be dramatic.
The panic in my eyes of like, wait, did she really not know that?
No. Colorblind. Just purple and pink colorblind. If you're enjoying the show, there are several things we would really appreciate. First, please leave us a review.
Yeah.
Because reviews mean more people can find us and learn about the show more quickly, and then jump in on all the fun that we're having. Second, please follow us wherever you follow podcasts. So for us, that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We are dominantly active on Facebook and Twitter. Whoa. Facebook and Instagram.
We're not active at all on Twitter.
We're not active on...
Not even sort of.
We're not active on...
Yeah.
But yes, go follow us there, because then you can find out when episodes release sooner. You can also just hang out in the comments, and we will probably put some kind of post up about asking for help with titling this new series. So please go find us over there. Let's see. Lastly, that is where I already said that. I kind of combined the last 2 points I had. But yeah, go follow us and come hang out in the comments. Yeah, they have. They've heard it many times.
All right. So we also want to hear from you. Obviously, we've asked you like 17 questions in this one episode. But here's another one. Did you hear something today that made you think and that you want to hear something more about? Do you have a topic that you really are just dying to hear us talk about? We said this more than once in the last couple of episodes that we recorded, but I have now since forgotten the order and when they are coming out. So I'm going to say it again. I have heard from more than one person that they're like, yeah, I thought about you if you guys would talk about this, or it'd be really cool if you would talk about that. You have to tell us.
Say it.
You have to say it. Otherwise, we don't know. Fun fact. So if you don't see us in your daily lives, you can email us.
Please do.
Okay. And that's at chromaroses@gmail.com, CHROMAROSES@gmail.com. And we will respond quickly because nobody emails us. So we'll
Except for the things that we subscribe to that help get us information.
Right. Or if we're talking to someone very specifically about something very specific. But we did get one email right when we started, and it literally we both like texted about it for like 10 minutes afterwards. So email us.
It will
make our actual days. Okay.
100%.
Great. We can't wait to hear from you.
It's the end, right? This has been
Chromatic
Roses.
Yep.
This has been Chromatic Roses. I'm Soren.
And I'm Caitie. Which one do I want to say today? Mommy, those hobbies. We've lost track.